everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Daily. It's Friday, and I'm glad to be sitting here with Simon Board. I'm Nick Furshaw, looking back at a big headline from Thursday, a big trade in Major League Soccer. Bakary Soumare finally dealt from the Philadelphia Union back to the Chicago Fire, the team with which he got his start back in 2007, a 2008 Best 11 selection and a nominee for Defender of the Year. Went to Europe, came back, he's battled injuries. What are the Chicago Fire going to see from Bakary Soumare?
Well, I think they slot him right in as a starting center back. And look, Soumare had this cloud of, is he back to his normal self after the injuries? We didn't get to see much action until lately. And I think this is what gave the Chicago Fire the conviction to make this deal and maybe gave Philadelphia what they wanted in return and what they were holding out for. He actually played against the Chicago Fire right in front of Frank Lopez. They make the deal, and I think we all knew Soumare was heading out of Philly at some point.
And for the Union, it's back to that pairing of Jeff Park and Amobi Okugo, a pairing that John Hackworth likes a lot. He also told our own Dave Zeitlin that now this gives the Union a little bit of cap space, a little bit of money to make some summertime moves. We'll see if the Philadelphia Union are back on the market later this summer. Next up, a late addition to the U.S. national team roster for that friendly against Belgium next week out in Cleveland. It's a bit of a surprise. It's Corey Ashe from the Houston Dynamo, one of the better young left backs in the league. This move made in part because Jurgen Klinsmann, they're a little bit thin in those ranks.
Yeah, he's called up for the one game against Belgium on May 29th in Cleveland, and he'll return to the Houston Dynamo afterwards. But it's not a surprise for me. Corey Ashe, in my mind, is one of the top three left backs in MLS. I'm surprised he hasn't been given a chance by Jurgen Klinsmann before, because I think he fits the mold of what Klinsmann wants in a fullback. A guy who can go up and down, who can get involved in the attack and run all day. Ashe can do it. Sure, he's a little undersized, not as tall as a Fabian Johnson, but I think he can do just as good a job as an Edgar Castillo.
Some of the reason Ashe was called in, two of those guys you mentioned, still involved in club play. Edgar Castillo with Club Tijuana in the Copa Libertadores, and Fabian Johnson with Hoffenheim. Both of those teams were in action on Thursday. What do we get of the results?
It only went well for one of them in my eyes. Fabian Johnson, the first leg of their promotion relegation playoff to remain in the Bundesliga. They win 3-1 against Kaiserslautern at home. Fabian Johnson, by all accounts, had a great game, so that's something to look forward to for the U.S. national team when he joins camp. For Edgar Castillo and Tijuana, they had a 2-0 lead against Atletico Mineiro of Ronaldinho's team. They are the favorites for the Copa Libertadores, and they could have added a few more goals to that. They missed the mark on a few chances, and then at the end, they cough it up, 2-2, a last-minute goal in stoppage time. So I think Tijuana, they're going to make a trip all the way to Brazil, but this tie's lost.
Just a couple of the storylines you're going to find in the latest edition of The Kickoff. That comes out early Friday morning on MLSsoccer.com. Last but not least, a holiday weekend coming up, and it's full of MLS action, including, Simon, 3 games on national television on Sundays. Kansas City and Houston on the NBC Sports Network, the New York Red Bulls and Columbus on Unimas, and maybe the best game, the LA Galaxy at home against the Seattle Sounders on ESPN2 on Sunday evening. Make sure you log on MLSsoccer.com/schedule to get the full list. Is that LA Sounders game the best one of the weekend?
Absolutely. I think the rivalry between those two teams possibly trumps the one between Kansas City and Houston, because Seattle have this mission to be as good as LA, as successful as LA, and that's an ongoing theme between these teams. But more importantly, LA have lost 3 of 4. They're the defending champs. Seattle, now they're back on the upswing, and they have a chance to overtake LA in the standings. I think LA arguably needs this game more than Seattle.
A lot of stars still involved in this game. Remember those players that have been called up to national team duty, whether it's Eddie Johnson, Omar Gonzalez, or Robbie Keane. They're all going to play on Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Catch a live chat on MLSsoccer.com. Want to remind everybody out there, the latest edition of Extra Time Radio is out. Came on iTunes, Buzzsprout, and Stitcher Radio on Thursday. Will Johnson from the Portland Timbers and Jack Bell from the New York Times with some interesting things to say about New York City FC, as well as the New York Red Bulls. And UEFA Champions League on Saturday. What are you doing? Make sure you log on to kicktv.com, where Jimmy Conrad will be joined by Heath Pierce and Dax McCarty from the New York Red Bulls for a live Google Hangout during the game. Should be fun. Always fun when those guys get together. Make sure you log on kicktv.com. Does it for us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back on Tuesday.